pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the administrators for being here to do their presentations. As you can see, that we have a number of presentations, each 15 minutes long. Tonight is just the first night of our presentations. So the presentations themselves will be 10 minutes long and give 5 minutes at the end of each presentation for school committee members to ask clarifying questions. This is not the time for a debate. This is ask questions that would be clarifying questions, information you didn't quite hear, or you need a little bit more to understand it. But that's where we'll end it. The second night of, the second budget workshop night, we'll finish the presentations, and at the end of that evening then we'll have an hour and a half for both the school committee to debate the budget and various aspects of the budget, as well as hear from the community that attends. So tonight we'll not open it up for community comments or thoughts, but thank you all for coming to listen to our presentations. Any questions? Okay, Superintendent Brown, please.
Thank you very much. Just as a public service announcement, if anybody is here for the Democratic Committee, that's not this meeting, that's the one down the hill at the police station. So if you were here for that, then you're at the wrong place. Goodbye. So, like everybody, I'm on a timer too, although I generously gave myself a half an hour and everybody else 15 minutes. So 15 more minutes than the other my colleagues. Just a couple of things that's different about this process than you may have had in the past. So first of all, we are being filmed. Thanks, Tiff Shaw. Tiff is going to film the proceedings tonight. They will be edited, and then they're going to be linked from our website to YouTube, to the district's YouTube channel. So smile, Mr. Ladd, you're on TV. So just be aware of that. This is something new we're trying to, again, increase the opportunity for the public to watch the proceedings if they may not be able to get here. So that's number one. Number two, these, I guess, are different. This is the school district budget book. Mine weighs a good 15 pounds at this point. Every school board member has one. Every administrator has one. I've got some extras in my office, and people are welcome to come in and look at them. They can't look at them and take them out because I'm afraid that they'll lose them and not get them back. People can come and check them out and see what's in there. The books are divided primarily by article, which matches up with the way the school warrant is presented. So if you want to go and look at, for example, Article 9, which happens to be maintenance, that's the maintenance article. You can take a look at that. I've also included in the budget books the budgets that the administrators gave to me, and then we discussed, and then he went on to the school committee. Most things survived, some things did not. You'll have a chance to look at all the staffing, pretty much every aspect of the school district as we know. So with that brief orientation, the other thing I want to say before I launch into my presentation is that budget development is not static. It's an iterative process, which means that after each meeting, including this one, there will be things that need to be added, they need to be changed. I already found things that I missed. I put that in my revised memo to the school committee tonight. And so it doesn't mean that people are wrong. It just means that the process is a dynamic one, and it's going to change all the way up to and possibly including June, when the community will vote on the budget. So I want to say that clearly. So if someone says, well, how come something isn't in, or was it left out? It's quite possible that it was, but that doesn't mean it's foreclosed of not getting put back. So with that, I would like to start my presentation. So this is the 2020 budget, and let's see if I can get this to go. So our mission as the Winthrop Public Schools is to create a solid foundation for students that allows them the opportunity to acquire the skills necessary to achieve success in a global world. That's what we're all about. So the budget as proposed this evening is $12,233,165.50. And as you know, I was new this year, but one of the things that has really impressed me about Winthrop is that you have great kids, great schools, and a great community. So let's see if I can make this work. This was last Saturday. Look at the kids in the background. Excellent. You know, some of you may know that I came from Augusta, and I used to go to the tournament games as I was at this one on Saturday. I've never seen the place so full. It was amazing. The entire town of Winthrop must have been there. It was just a sea of white and green. It's really cool to see. So the priorities that I have established within the school budget, and these reflect things that I've heard since I've been here, including the comprehensive needs assessment that the district submitted to the Maine Department of Education back in June of 2018, the discussions that I've heard at the school committee table around the priorities for the year, things that I've observed as I've walked around your schools, and things that I think would make sense in terms of best practice. So they include student and staff safety. Recently completed was an HRC report. The findings of that will come to you, but some of that is reflected in my budget, and you'll hear why. Curriculum and instruction. One of the things that I get teased about, I tease myself about this, is the number of hats that I wear. So one day I was on the Department of Ed's site, and I was trying to fill out the reports. And I looked at all the different things that had been ascribed to the superintendent, including, as y'all know, my personal favorite, the integrated pest manager. So some of these things, like curriculum and instruction, I feel bad because I have not given it any time. And I'm really remiss about that. But I don't know how to accommodate that without taking away some of the other really pressing priorities. I also serve as the business manager, the facilities director, director of technology, and quite honestly, those things have outpaced my time. I believe that you are a high-performing school district, and you're really poised to take the next step. You're really ready. But in order to do that, you need an expert in curriculum and instruction. So I'm recommending, and you'll see as we get further into this, a director of teaching and learning. So infrastructure needs, we talked about that. We had an architect here in January. I believe you have some pretty pressing needs, facility-wise, that need to be evaluated. Not stuff that I can do. I can walk around and tell you if the ceiling tile needs to be replaced. What I can't tell you, though, is if the HVAC system is going to last for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. I can't tell you what all the ADA issues or violations may be. And so I think you really need a comprehensive look at all three schools. I want to maintain the comprehensive program at Winthrop High School. I want to try to bring the school nutrition program into a solvent status. Just prior to this meeting, we had a meeting with the auditor again, and it's clear that the school nutrition program ended in a deficit for 2018, and I'm projecting another deficit for 2019. I can say that with pretty good confidence. And to maintain our adult education programs. So on we go. Here are a couple of statistics at a glance from our schools, teachers, ed techs, and some other staffing. And in my opinion, this is how you support a high-performing district. I talked a little bit about the director of teaching and learning. One of the things that struck me when I came to Winthrop, and I'm still amazed, I worked in a lot of different school districts. I've never worked in one where the cost of doing business, the cost of training teachers, providing professional development, providing conferences and courses, wasn't considered a district expense. I think it should be, and so I have moved those costs into the regular operating budget this year. That's in there. I have settled and proposed contract increases. We have 2 units that are negotiating right now, so this is a guess. I've proposed adding campus nurses. One of the things that has struck me as I've walked around your schools is the need for pretty specialized medical care for our students. We have students who are diabetic. We have students with pretty remarkable health needs. And I think both from a student care perspective and a liability perspective, the district should have 2 campus nurses. The 5th one is really important to me. You folks have worked really hard to put all of your resources appropriately into the classroom. What that has meant, though, is that you have fewer adults in the building at any one time who are free to respond to whatever it happens to be, whether it's a student issue, an emergency, to be in classrooms to support teachers. And so I believe you need an increased adult presence, not just for student safety, but for the other reasons that I've mentioned. And I'm also recommending a computer technician for Winthrop High School. Dave and I were talking one afternoon in early September, and I said, where are your technicians? And he said, well, we really have a quarter technician allocated just to the high school. I went, I was baffled by that. And we have a district technician who keeps our network running. And then at the high school, they really have a quarter technician to work with the staff and solve staff issues and student issues. And I don't think that's enough. So that's it. So specifically, the Director of Teaching and Learning, part of it's in the budget, part of it is paid with Title II funds. The nurses, I recommend strongly to increase the middle school principal from 0.8 to a full-time principal. I believe the grade school needs a full-time assistant principal. We're projecting health insurance increases at 10%. I don't have the actual increases at this point. I should get them within the next month or two, I'm hoping. I hope that's high. We'll see. A couple extra hours for the grade school, and something that I think is really needed here, which is a director of buildings and grounds. Somebody who can respond and help oversee what gets done. And then a full-time kitchen manager for Winthrop High School. And then revenues. So right now, our general purpose aid is the figure 4962,812.77. And just as a caveat to general purpose aid moves around for a couple of reasons. One of them is this amount is not enacted. So the legislature will not vote on general purpose aid until probably Synodi, which will be June-ish. This is a long session that we're in right now. This is about the last thing that they do. So hopefully the number will go up. The other thing that impacts general purpose aid, Lori knows I just wring my hair, is the seed concept with public and private seed that I don't understand at all. I might as well just be honest about that. Thank God she's an expert. We're lucky to have her. But again, it impacts general purpose aid, so you've got to pay attention to that. Tuition, $50,000, that's primarily from students from Fayette. Main care, I have upped. On conversations with Lori, we feel comfortable given our history and what we're billing for. Gate receipts and miscellaneous is down a little bit. We are not going to be billing for a student who had been here. So part of that was money that was coming from another community to pay for those costs. We don't think we'll have them. So locally, $7,047,353 would be what we would ask the community for this year. So what that looks like right now is from a year-to-year increase of $450,816 from the 2018-19 budget to the 2019-20. That number includes, and I want to underscore this, a 42% increase for the school nutrition program. And I'm not sure that's going to be enough money. I was looking at, we have basically 2 forms of revenue, 3 forms for the school nutrition program. One is our federal reimbursements that we get. That's down because our free reduced numbers are down. The second revenue is from school lunch sales. That's down. We're not selling as many lunches as we used to. And then the third revenue source comes from the town. Last year it was $95,000, the year that we're in. And the year before that is the beginning of that deficit that I told you about. So that's the problem. So the regular budget without that is up $322,816. This gives you a sense of what the operating budget has looked like over the years. all the way to where we are today. And then this gives you a sense of, for each budget year, going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 10 or 11, what the increases have been. If that's helpful and interesting to people. This is a slide, and it's probably busy for those in the audience, but it's in your packet. One of the pieces of feedback that I had from the town council was they'd really like to see a year-to-year comparison. What I've done, and it's a first step, perhaps there are others to take, is to look at the articles 18-19 as proposed 19-20 and what those differences are. I like it because I call it an at a glance, and you can tell up and down where the things are up and over. As we get deeper into the budget, we'll look more closely at why those articles are the way they are. The school nutrition article I already told you about, up fairly significantly. That would be the local appropriation increase, if passed, 354, 668. And then, unfortunately, as we try to balance, and when I say we, this budget is the collaborative effort, not just of Connie and Amanda, but of the full administrative team. We spent a long time trying to figure out how to balance what we see the projected needs of the district to be, and then a corresponding list of reductions. Ideally, we'd have everything, but we feel that we cannot sustain everything, and so this is the list. 1.2 teaching positions at Winthrop Middle School. One of those positions is not filled right now. The other one is the .2 that Karen teaches. .2 Dean of Students. I'm going to recommend that we move the Dean of Students entirely to the high school, and that position is replaced with a full-time middle school principal. A building ed tech at Winthrop Middle School, that position will be vacant in March. Is that right? So I think that that's something that we can do without for this year. The health aides would be phased out and replaced by the campus nurses. One teaching position at Winthrop High School. The district nurse, if we have campus nurses, we don't need a district nurse. One special ed teacher at the high school. .6 accounts payable, that position has been unfilled since July. That's in my office. .5 accounts payable CO, that's another reduction. That position has been unfilled, has been half-time since October, November, right in that window. Half-time school nutrition leader, school nutrition director, and one SMP leader, and that would be at the high school. So this is the process, and I want to be conscious of time. So this is tonight. We're going to hear from the grade school, the middle school, the high school, special ed, and adult ed. Teresa Maxey is not able to join us tonight, so we're going to bump her to the next evening. Now that, some of you might think, well, that's more time for me. Not me, but like you. So, Mr. Creech, that's not an extra 15 minutes for you. All right, and then on the 13th, as Chairman Geyer said, we're going to go back through the rest of the accounts: nutrition, athletics, guidance, technology, committee and administration, school admin, and so on. Some of these things go faster than others. For example, revenues. I've covered some of that tonight. Debt's an easy one. Then on, oops, did I miss one? Seems like I'm missing a slide. I think I am. So on the 20th, we have another budget meeting planned, 6 to 8, 6 to 9 here, and that will be a deliberative process. The last meeting maybe is the 27th of March, and that's only if needed. We are presenting to the town council on April 8th. We get to go first. Looking forward to that, and I believe that's it. So I thank you, Principal Chris, for my pictures. Thanks all of you for sending them. So I'd be happy to entertain questions about the information presented, or we can swing right into the presentations by the administrators.
Any board members have any clarifying questions?
Nope, we're good. Let's go. Are good. All right.
Winthrop grade school budget. Can I sit down or do I have to stand up?
Whatever you'd like.
All right, I'm going to sit down.
Okay.
So Winthrop grade school is where we currently are, and I wanted to show you just a little bit in terms of the picture of what the school is, that it's much more than just the building. You can see, this is the last year, we don't have the current composite put together, but at the top you can see all of the staff and all of the bright and shiny faces. There are approximately 440 kids there that make up Winthrop Grade School. The other important thing I wanted to make sure that you knew, they should just go quickly. There we go, we'll do it this way. The other thing I wanted to make sure that you knew was that Winthrop Grade School, an important piece of what we do is the culture of the building and how we work with the kids and the staff and each other. And this is our latest bucket filling poster board right outside of the library, and kids have a chance as they are filling buckets to have their names drawn and go into a drawing at the end of the month. They have their picture posted as for those that are selected, and each month we rotate through. But bucket filling is an important piece of Winthrop Grade School, and it's not the building or the dollars or anything else. Winthrop Grade School is the staff and the students. The other thing you need to keep in mind, and it's really hard on a night like tonight because you're going to hear from 3 different buildings. And it's hard, I think, for a lot of people to keep in mind the difference in those buildings. There are a lot of differences and some similarities. But one of the biggest differences for the grade school is just the sheer size of the grade school. The grade school is about 440 students, which if you take the high school and the middle school and you add them together, that's what you're looking at. And so when you compare those 3 buildings and you look at budgets and you look at staffing and those things, you're not comparing apples with apples when you look at the student population and the staff population that it's required to support. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as you look at any comparisons you might be tempted to make across the 3 buildings, because we are quite different. This is just a picture of Article 1. Article 1. What time did I start? What's my... I'm going to run out. I'm going to talk quicker.
You have 7 minutes.
Okay. Did that count the time I was messing around?
No.
Oh, good. So Article 1 is our instruction article. When we think about instruction, that's what it is in all 3 buildings. And it's almost a half of that $11 million. It's actually a little over a third of that $11 million that Dr. Brown, $12 million that Dr. Brown talked about. And it's divided up 48% at the grade school, 19% at the middle school, 33% at the high school. So that kind of shows you how that instructional piece is divided across those 3 buildings, which matches fairly well with what that student population is that I just mentioned. If you look specifically at the grade school program is divided across multiple articles. Article 1 is the regular instruction that we just mentioned. That's about 78% of the grade school, and that's all of your classroom programs and a few other things. Article 4 is very small at the grade school. We do offer a few clubs. That's the co-curricular piece. There's about $5,000 there so that we can offer some clubs throughout the year. Article 5 is student and staff support, and Article 7 is administration. I didn't put the maintenance and facilities in there because that's kind of a little bit of an odd duck in terms of starting to put in heating costs and other kinds of things at this point in time. So if we dig into it a little bit deeper at the grade school, our K-5 instructional program, that's about $1.5 million. You'll also see this K2. I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but essentially the K2 incremental and the blue K5 go together. Those are our classroom programs, but it's separated out for some funding, reporting categories. We're still not sure if we need to do it that way or not, but historically that's the way we've done it. But when you look at the budget and you see that K2 incremental and you scratch your head and wonder, what in the world is that? It's really just a budgeting piece, but it all belongs with that blue piece. The preschool program, about $134,000, and the gifted and talented program. So all of those are the programs and pieces that are in Article 1 for the grade school. And it's similar for the other two buildings as well in terms of their pieces. K-5 classroom programs, I put that K2 incremental back in because that's really where it belongs. There's the preschool and the gifted and talented. I just wanted to highlight the preschool just for a couple of quick minutes because some people may not be as familiar with the preschool program as those of us that are in the building every day, but we operate 3 preschool programs. It's designed to be a 4-year-old program. There are 16 students, which is our limit that we're required. We cannot exceed more than 16 students, and we have to have 2 adults in each classroom with the 16 students. The 2 morning programs are collaborative with SKCDC, that's Southern Kennebec Development Corporation, and they basically provide Head Start services in combination with our regular programming in the morning. That's a 3.5-hour program. They eat both breakfast and lunch in the classroom. And in the afternoon, we have our regular classroom program for preschoolers, and that's a 3-hour program. So we have a total of 48 preschool students. We have historically always filled that program. Some years we'll have a few kids on a waiting list that can't get in, but we've been pretty close the last couple of years. And the curriculum they use is the OWL curriculum, Opening the World of Learning. I'm going to run out of time. This is going to go really quick. That's basically what our budget looks like in terms of the preschool program. You can see most of it is staffing. But just for perspective in terms of what goes into instructional supplies, equipment, books, periodicals, field trips, it's not very big compared to what our staffing costs are, which is not unusual for a school. Again, this is the GT program, which is part of Article 1. We have 1.25 staff people, instructional supplies, field trips, etc. GT is a little bit different because it's spread across the K-8, so there's not a specific K-5 budget and a K-8 budget. It's combined together into a K-8. So, but this is a separated out for our portion at the grade school. This is the K-5 classroom program. You'll see there are several more categories there because there are some general things that we don't apportion out into each and every situation, such as we have the tuition reimbursement, for example, only shows up in the K-5 budget right now, but it applies to all of the grade school staff people. We have a contracted service for an ELL consultant that we just show in that one spot. But that's why there are a few more categories listed there. But again, most of it's staff costs. 1.7 million for salary costs. Faculty and staff, this is what the grade school looks like in terms of Article 1. This isn't everyone, again, this is just the instructional area specifically. So we've got 23 classroom teachers, 1.7 preschool teachers, 3 curriculum extension teachers, that's art, music, and PE. Ed Tech, Tina Cole's 50%, general K1 support at 50%. She does the afternoon preschool. In the morning we have SKCDC staff with our staff. In the afternoon we have half of our teacher plus an Ed Tech. And .4, Teresa's .4 in the regular in support section, and the other .6 of her is in Article 5 for the library. Here's Article 5, which is the next biggest one. Those are the programs that are listed in Article 5, and you'd probably hear about those on another night, but it's part of the grade school, so I put it all together. So we've got guidance, health services, library services, and technology services. Moving along quickly. You won't be able to hear this, but I just wanted to show you real quick. This is an example of short throw interactive technology projector. Thank you. I'm worried. But I wanted to highlight this because it's really important. He's working through a math example, and it gets cut off real quick. This is a second grade student, and now we've jumped, another example is a fourth grade classroom where they can use these, it's an interactive whiteboard essentially. The projector is mounted up on the top on the wall and there's remote speakers. So what it does is it eliminates the need for carts and cables and crappy little speakers. These work, but we've got nice speakers mounted up on the wall. So it's a very complete system, and it was two of our teachers. We have one in the fourth grade class and the second grade class. And two of our teachers did a research project to determine what the best elementary technology system was, and that was what they came up with. So in the technology budget, there is, am I gonna get thrown out?
Mr. Ladd,
Yes.
I was warned by
No,
our chief that I had to be really strict.
But you're not that strict, right?
I can tend
It's
to
like,
be.
I know. So Article 7, Karen's ready to go. So this is basically the staffing in Article 7 for administration. I'm ignoring her.
How many more slides do you have?
Just two. I'm almost there. Facilities and maintenance projects is right there. And then the other thing I wanted to just go over real quickly, one of those projects is to secure this set of doors, which is in the gym lobby, going into the main part of the building so that we can secure that from the gym. And some of the things we hope to work on in the future.
Well,
Well, I think I used it up.
thank you. 7 seconds, I think, right.
Want me to hand out stuff, please?
Tease him, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
How many of those things are based on,
No,
I don't get that in their presentation?
So,
I had 5 that were in the budget. It's about $3,000 to set it up, and that gives us a real whiteboard, because they don't recommend the old bathroom tile that we currently use for whiteboards.
Yeah.
So that's a real whiteboard, magnetic whiteboard with the short throw projector mounted, and it's installed, and it's a great setup.
are there any other school committee questions?
Just in general, this will be my question for most every school, so if you others want to get prepared. So I see that you have 23 classroom teachers K-5 and your enrollment's 440. Roughly, what's your class size on average going to be?
16 to 18.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, Jeff.
Any other questions? Next.
And now we're up to the Winthrop Middle School budget proposal. And I have to agree with Jeff, and I just want to throw out there that there is so much more than dollars and cents when you come to educating children. And I have been at the Winthrop Middle School now for 21 years, and I am proud to say that this is the kind of project that we try to pull off as an entire school. This was put together for the second year in a row. Lisa Gilman, shout out to the art teacher, for collaborating with the district, a local artist, Jason Cody. I'm going to say all but a handful of students put on snowshoes, went out back and created this design for the Bailey Public Library, which they will now use as a logo. So I think it's important that we talk about more than just who's in the building, but since that's where we're going. Staff projections for next year. I will have 9 full-time core teachers. Core are the academics. I have 2 full-time unified arts teacher. One is an unified arts teacher, yes. 1 art teacher, 1 PE. The art teacher teaches 3 classes of art and 3 classes of reading. She has a master's in literacy. PE, we are able to squeeze in 2 PE classes for every child in the course of a week, and they are approximately 50 minutes in length. I have 3 shared unified arts teachers. My UA is the same as Jeff's curriculum extensions. They're the above and beyond the core. They are such an integral part of a middle school philosophy to get kids exposed to things and to get ready to make informed choices at high school for their electives. I have 3 shared unified arts teacher. 1 tech ed, Mr. MacArthur teaches an 8th grade class. 1 drama class, Dennis Price teaches an 8th grade class. And Nick Folk teaches general music at the 6th and 7th grade. He also does band and chorus at the middle school. I have a full-time school counselor who teaches a unified arts. I have a full-time technology ed tech who teaches a unified arts class. I have a full-time librarian ed tech who covers the office so Mrs. Warren can do the mail run and have lunch. I have a full-time administrative assistant, that's Mrs. Warner, and I started writing receptionist, assistant to the principal, gives meds as needed, and I just put does it all because we don't have enough time. I have a full-time custodian. I have one shared gifted and talented teacher who at the moment teaches 4 classes, 3 of reading, 1 of 7th grade math, which will start March 8th. She also works at the grade school and the high school, and I have a part-time, this is for next year now, I have a part-time athletic director. It's looking like 30%. Students projected for next year based on numbers this week, the 6th graders, this week, Jeff was kind enough to give me, the 5th grade numbers are 58, 74, 7th graders, 58, 8th graders. In any given grade, our kids have 6 academic periods. They take math, English language arts, reading, social studies, science, and a unified arts every day. We have 2 lunch periods, each of them are 25 minutes long. We put the 6th graders alone, and we have a combined 7th and 8th grade lunch. We thought it was going to be a nightmare, but Mrs. Smith, not so bad, really not so bad. And believe me, any parent who said 25 minutes is too short needs to come to lunch duty for 2 weeks straight. They will change their mind. Next year we will have a 50-minute tutorial. In the past we've had a tutorial is a new name for study hall. We have tutorial at the middle school so that kids can go to banding course and not miss an academic or a unified arts class. This year we only have 25 minutes, and we have found that we are shortchanging not only banding course, but the kids who need help from other staff members. And so next year the staff would very much like me to increase that to 50 minutes. Again, banding course are the only electives we offer. Everything else every child has to take. And peak art is for students who are identified as gifted in art. They meet approximately once a week for 40 minutes. Our unified arts by grade, 6th graders have art, music, and Discover 101, which is basically computer-based service learning. 7th grade has art, music, and guidance. 8th grade has art, drummer, and tech ed. Each student rotates through all 3 courses in the course of a year. So every one of those teachers, for instance, Mr. MacArthur, between September and June, will teach every 8th grade student. The kids rotate, and that's, I can't tell you who, but that's their requirement. This year we have, and I hate the word cut, but we had a math teacher leave in December, a full-time math teacher, and the staff absorbed the students within the classrooms. We did not replace him. Mrs. Fecto has taken a job at Thomas College. She is an Ed Tech 3 math remediation. Her last day will be March 7th. And Dr. Brown and I have decided we will not replace her this year nor next. Projected cuts for next year would be part of Mr. Stoneton, who is the middle school dean of students also, and that would be in lieu of the high school, the middle school principal becoming full-time, a 0.5 health aide, and the 0.2 teacher that I do. I teach 1 reading class every day. Medical staff model, which we have discussed, would be, I'm not going to talk about the grade school, there will be a campus nurse there, but a campus nurse that will be shared at the middle and high school 50% each, and hopefully a 0.5 health aide paid for Fayette, so that Winthrop Middle School will be covered by a health professional 100% of the time. Requests in the budget for the middle school, big ticket items, big picture of kids, little picture of dollars. Because that's what we need to remember. ELA textbooks, they are the last of textbooks that need to be bought before I have to go back and start reordering the math textbooks, because in 2021, our 6-year license for math texts will be up, and we will need to reorder them. And so we've got to get these ELA textbooks in the budget. That's for about $6,500. That's a 1-year license for every student to have an online textbook, and quite a few teacher licenses. Whiteboards, just plain old-fashioned whiteboards to write on. You do have to replace them every once in a while. 2 sets of classroom furniture. In 21 years, we have replaced 1 classroom set of furniture at the middle school. 1. We got the leftovers when the high school was built. 2 cafeteria tables. In 21 years, we've replaced 2 cafeteria tables. We need new ones. A slab roller for art because it's slowly losing its grip. to be able to roll out the clay, and we do a lot with clay in the art room. 6 science tables, we have 2 science labs. One of the rooms has the original science tables. They were re-laminated on the top. They're the original science tables that came with the middle school, and the middle school's 47 years old. 4 smart boards. I put smart boards because I didn't know what they were called, throw projectors. They're exactly what Mr. Loud was talking about. We got 2 this year. They are phenomenal. The total of my big ticket items is just under $29,000. Technology needs for the middle school, new wireless system and backup battery. The MLTI people came in and gave us a bunch of stuff years ago. Well, it's slowing down. It doesn't have the capacity to do what we need it to do. That's at a cost of about $16,500. Here's my maintenance list. This is what, when the board and town council were invited to come walk through. After that, this was the list that Mr. Tucker and I provided. This is not everything, but that's a great picture of the middle school. Additional points just to think about: average homeroom size. We start our day in what we call connections. Average homeroom size is 13.9. Average content classroom size, that's the music, reading, science, social studies, math, 17.9. Average reading class size is 16.9. Average unified arts class size is 20.7, and that's because there's only 3 groups per grade level. Average tutorial size, that's the study hall, is 16.8. I'm done.
Whoa.
Questions? School committee questions?
Is this an appropriate time? About the whole nurse situation. So there'd be one at the grade school, there'd be one that goes between the high school and the middle school.
Yep.
There'll be a half-time nurse aide at the middle school.
Right.
But if they're only there half-time, and the campus nurse goes to the high school, they wouldn't be covered,
Correct.
right? Okay, okay, and I know we can get into that more later.
Right.
But I'm just trying to figure that piece out.
Right.
Okay.
Kristen, did you want to ask your question?
She already provided
Okay, I didn't know if it was good enough.
numbers.
Miss Chris, my only question would be where will we be with RTI?
RTI, we don't have one.
So,
We don't have a formalized program. We work independently with each kid who needs RTI, with teachers and me and the guidance counselor. But we really are lacking in the RTI area. And I think one of the things, if we get this director of teaching and learning that can help us, is to bridge the gap K-8, so that we can look at a program that somewhat does K-12, that somewhat does what the grade school does and target. With Ashley in math, she has been the RTI person.
so that particular program is out then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Stone has passed out for you some slide sheets. If any of you want to take some notes on the slides I have, and you can ask me those questions afterwards. I wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to share with you the overview for the high school portion of the budget. My overview is going to be slightly different than the previous 2 you just saw, in that I think it's important to note for you, being a new principal at the high school and dealing with this district's budget process, the existing budget that was created prior to me coming here, to give you a little snapshot of how we went about managing and creating the budget this year. And just like Dr. Brown has had to go through as a superintendent, as a high school principal, I had to find a process that would work for our building. So to begin with, we had some budget goals. I had to take a look with the staff at our examining our existing budget, assess what we had for resources to support what we have in place at the school, and then start to discuss a little bit how we're going to have our budget needs met for the upcoming school year. It was apparent to me right off the bat, having conversations with my staff, that we really had to create and implement an efficient, transparent budget development process. That wasn't in place for them in the past. There wasn't a whole lot of transparency. There wasn't a lot of empowerment for them to be a part of the process, and we really needed to put this in place so that those who really know what we need were a part of deciding what that was. So we worked at educating and empowering the staff in the budget development. And of course, we want to find a physically responsible budget, supports the educational needs of our students, our staff, and it fits the community's vision for what they want at Winthrop High School. Once we had that in place, it was my responsibility to share that budget with the superintendent and with the school committee to get feedback from you and go over what we've had in place and work with you collaboratively to decide what we have to put forward. The process. So as I mentioned before, we looked at the existing budget system. We created a process that I think is a process, it's an electronic process that allows staff to provide me specific feedback on their budget needs. In the absence of a department head for the content areas, I had to rely on getting information from every single staff member in every single content area to figure out what the needs were overall. So I'm going to show you in a minute here the process that we went through. Through that process, it was about having conversations with staff about their role, talking with district leadership and with Superintendent Brown about what our vision is, how to approach our budget. And it was really to train the staff on how they're actually now going to be empowered to be a part of this process and how they look at their existing budget. That was a big part of the work that we've done this year. And of course, what we're doing now is engaging in those budget expectations, those budget discussions, and we're talking about, these are our expectations for what we need to do at Winthrop High School for our kids to continue to have the quality education they have. So, part of what we did was to put into place transparency so that we knew what was happening soup to nuts at the high school. Created this budget worksheet. And in this budget worksheet, which of course is now tiny now that I've gone and done it, you'll see that every budget line is supported for all the operational expenses we do. And what I also included here was every single staff member's part of that process. So if you click on any of these individual numbers, you're able to go to what the staff members had allocated for their portion of the budget. So let me show you how that would look. If you take, for instance, I'm just going to use the guidance budget. So for each of the lines in the instructional piece, staff members could click on this spreadsheet and they would be able to place what they thought they needed for expenses for this year. And we would include what they had for an FY19 amount and what they're proposing for this amount. The transparency part that's really important here is that in the past, staff members were told you have X amount of money to work with. So they would just try to stay within that range. Now what we do is we look at what are the needs for that particular staff member for their programs. And then what they're able to do is all of this is placed into this spreadsheet and it's already itemized for them. So what happens is after we go through the budget process, if it's approved, they'll know how much is approved for them in that area and they'll have already done the work. Like for instance, if it's textbooks or anything that they have to purchase, they've already done the work ahead of time and front-loaded it. So that once the budget process has been approved, then when they go back in for us to order things, they already have a request form in place. And once they go and order those things, Denise Mitchell goes in and she takes and inserts the purchase order and it's one-stop shopping. The original budget process and all the work that's done to ensure that it's transparent and they know how much money they have and how it's been spent, it's all a part of this new process. So what I've found has been beneficial to us is it gives you a chance, like we should every single year as a school, to examine your existing resources and to start to track long-term and short-term what your needs are for a class. So you're going to see in a minute here, we're going to have a few of our expenses that have to be taken into account because there are teachers that haven't had textbooks in 10 years or other things like you've heard the other two principals mention. This is going to give us an opportunity to track this from this point forward every single year. And so I feel like the staff did a wonderful job of doing exactly what we hoped, which was empowering them to understand the budget, to know how to develop it, and forgive me all of the information I need as a principal to be able to support their needs. It was a little more challenging. I'm used to having department heads and having one department head share with me the needs of the whole content area. but it was really cool to hear the individual teachers work collaboratively to create this budget. So, our budget highlights. Our instructional line is going to be increasing approximately $18,500 for math, science, and social studies. The social studies government books are outdated. Mr. Pullen has given me examples of all kinds of things that have changed over the last 5 to 10 years that are incorrect. The existing resources have to be updated. Math and science are doing a great job of looking at a long-term 6-year deal for the electronic books. They'll save over $11,000 over 6 years as opposed to getting 1-year deals. So that's the $18,500 we have there. If you've been into the library, there's a fantastic new huge screen that was a $5,000 grant that the library got to put in. But what we lack now is the appropriate projector. And so this library projector and screen is not just going to be used by the library, it's going to be used by the high school and the entire community. So $3,000 for that. And then for our budget highlights, Dr. Brown has already spoken to this. We took a look at what we needed for resources in the English department, and we feel like we can reduce that by 1 FTE. In the foreign language department, we currently have 3 full-time foreign language teachers. And we looked at the numbers over the last 10 years, and our recommendation is that we phase out 1 language. So we have a retirement coming forward in French, so what we're going to do is we're going to reduce by 0.4 the foreign language department French position. So we'll look to hire a 0.6 French teacher to teach the 3 French classes. Our Latin teacher is also certified in social studies. Will remain in place, and we will phase out Latin. And that's our recommendation. 2 foreign language courses so we can provide a robust program, as opposed to 3 foreign language classes right now where we have very low numbers in some of those classes. Eight minutes and 30 seconds, and I'm done. Any questions? Right there. When I'm getting emails from my boss telling me that I only have 15 minutes, I'm going to time myself.
Questions from the school committee?
Okay, I'll ask my general question. You gave us the, your current class sizes. So I'm not going to ask you the same because I know that for each subject area it's different for you over the high school. But one of my concerns, and if you can't address this right now and it's something for further discussion later, it's fine. We have so few, one of the things I've heard about at the high school is scheduling students is that they have a hard time fitting in every single class of when it's offered. So by us reducing an English teacher, by us reducing a foreign language, and not having those offerings, are you confident that when a student that's in a very specific math class and it only is offered one time in the schedule, that they're going to be able to have all of their needs met?
So that's a great question. There are a lot of details to the budget that I didn't go over today that you'll be able to see in the budget sheet. But one of the things that I asked the content areas to do, they did a great job with, was a great time to examine our current content area model. And what is it that we want in our social studies department? What do we want in English? And so what we've put together is really those courses that should be the core courses, and then those things that we think are electives that are going to support a Winthrop High School student regardless of the pathway. So by doing that, we're not going to have this many courses offered at the high school, we're going to have this many. But within those, there's going to be pathways that we feel what we offer will support the different high school students. Having said that, it means you're not going to have that many offerings anymore, you're going to have this many offerings. And the 2 ways we're going to approach this, one is we're going to let Power School do its job, and we're going to create the signups and give all the assignments for teaching assignments to the teachers, and let the matrix for Power School decide whether we can place it where it needs to be placed. So Power School has all kinds of degrees of if it's a high priority or low priority. We'll look and see how that plays out. If we find that there's a high percentage of students who cannot get the classes they want, there are other ways we can do it. We can take an existing schedule, and instead of doing a build and load, we keep the schedule and just do a load so that we can fit the students where they want. And then the last way we've talked about doing it is there's only 25 teachers and there's 230 students, so I can actually put it on the guidance board and we can actually hand manipulate, like in the olden days, what the schedule would look like. So there's 3 options for us for the scheduling. The first one is the one I prefer because it's letting Power School do all the work. But if that ends up giving us too high of a percentage, like you just asked, for kids who can't get what they're signed up for, then we're going to resort to those other 2 strategies. But I think taking the content areas and following the model I just shared with you is going to be a huge change for our offerings. I think it's going to make a difference.
Dave, do kids have access to virtual high school classes?
They do. So we're part of a cohort. The students, if they can't have a class at the high school because the schedule doesn't fit, they can sign up for a virtual high school class. I know Rachel can speak specifically to that, but there's X number of seats that each school is given. And so if we wanted to have a student, let's say, take 2 or 3 classes that they couldn't get at the high school, and if we had used up our seats, we can actually purchase additional seats for virtual high school. There's also, and I think this is a great opportunity for kids too, we encourage them to take college courses. They can take online courses. There are other opportunities for students that perhaps can't get those singletons that we have at the high school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If I'm going over the 15 minutes, it's because of the questions you're asking, so let's be.
I have a follow-up to the virtual high school question. So are we maximizing our number of seats that we have, that we purchase for virtual high school currently?
I don't think so.
Every semester we've been full for the past, since I've been in charge for the 3 years. We have 3 seats a semester or 6 year-long, I'm sorry, we have 6 seats a year, they need a year-long semester. We've been using them for the past few years that I've been involved. We can get more. They asked us how many we think we're going to need each year, and I've stayed with the similar numbers, but we have used them each year.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. We are using everything we have for resources, but I don't think we're using virtual high school as much as we could.
I'm just wondering if we need to increase that because we're changing our model. That was my follow-up.
I absolutely think we should. Thank you.
Thank you.
So mine is fairly short because there aren't a lot of changes, but I did want to give you some information about special education. You're all educators or former educators, so I know you know about special ed and our obligation. But special education means specially designed instruction at no cost to parents to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. Our foundation is FAPE, which is a free, appropriate public education, and the appropriate is the piece there that kind of drives our budget a lot of the time in determining what that appropriate is for each individual child. Facts and figures, and this was based on last week, so like Karen was saying, it changes already. I'm up to 106 students. We had a registration this week, so it changes. I tell people all the time that special education is a moving target. We just need somebody to move in, as you know, Jana, and you know, we have to follow the plan that they come in or meet to decide how we're going to follow that plan as close as we can. So we currently have actually 106 special education students, 12% of our total school population. We serve children with 9 different disability types. There are 14, but here in Winthrop right now, we're serving children with 9 different disability types. We currently have 9 special education teachers. There are 4 at the grade school, 2 at the middle school, and 3 at the high school. There are 31 educational technicians that are in the current budget. I right now have 3 that are vacant. We haven't had to fill those this year. So we have 28 that are filled in the ed techs that we have. We have 7 specialists. We have 1 occupational therapist, 1 physical therapist, 3 speech pathologists, 1 school psychologist, and a BCBA, and all of these people we contract with. There are 4 resource room classrooms and 4 self-contained classrooms in the 3 schools. We send students, and I really can't give you the number because under 10 you're getting into FERPA and confidentiality, but we send children to 3 special purpose private schools. So those are out-of-district placements. And most of that money is taken out of local entitlement. It doesn't come out of the regular budget. So that's what we use a lot of local entitlement for, is for the tuition for those students. Right now, we have a contract with CDS, the Child Development System, and we are providing speech therapy to 6 CDS students who are in our preschool programs. And we just started doing that in the last couple of months, and that's bringing some revenue into our district to do that, because we get to bill CDS for our speech pathology time. So that's been a nice addition for us in the revenue. And right now, it looks like we have about 10 incoming CDS students who will have transition meetings on this spring to see how we're going to serve them here in the fall. So on the second page, this is the current changes in the budget. We are maintaining current funding levels for Medicaid seed. And on the third page, I gave you just another little primer on what seed is in our obligation there. It's more for your reference point. So if you need that, because it is a hard concept, but it does impact our budget. So because we have to pay, a portion of what is billed for main care, whether it's the kids that we send to out-of-district placements or the kids that we are billing for main care and they're receiving services here in Winthrop. So we're maintaining $60,000 for the seed. That changes. The rate changes. It depends on if I bring a kiddo back from an out-of-district placement, then we're going to have lower seed costs. If I have to send one out, we're going to have higher seed costs. The seed changes to if they change the rate. So there's a lot of variables when you talk about seed in Medicaid. Our legal fees, we're going to keep at $5,000. We do have a line for tuition for $50,000 and program support. And this is more for the unexpected. Because the last thing we want to do, Connie or I want to do, is come to you and say, we have this huge expense that just occurred. So we want to make sure we're prepared for something like that. And the program support could also be any type of consultation services we need, transportation, if we get in line with that, which you'll see in Article 8, are big costs for special education also. In Special Olympics, which I know is near and dear to many people's hearts here in Winthrop, so we're maintaining with $4,000 for Special Olympics. So the reductions to Article 2 are one of the teachers at the high school is retiring, and I do not see a need to fill her position. Our numbers are fairly low, and I think we can cover the students' needs with 2 teachers instead of 3 teachers at the high school. And at this time, I don't feel we need to fill the 3 vacancies for the ed techs. So we're not laying anybody off or letting anybody go. These are unfilled positions in retirement. So overall, it's a decrease of $123,587.90.
But you still feel as though you're covered from any upward changes?
Well, like I said, it's a moving target. So I can only base it on what I know right now. I do feel that hopefully if we have some needs, we can move some staff around and talking ed techs to cover some needs. It changes. I mean, we have kids move out and we have kids move in. So it's really hard at this time of year to really know what the needs are for the fall. So we go by what we know now. The last year and a half I've been here, I think, we've been pretty conservative and we've saved some money. I'm always hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that we don't get hit with something hard. But it can happen. It really can. But I think with what we know now at this time, I think this is very reasonable. Questions?
I'll ask my student ratios. I know that we contract out a lot of our language speech and language and so on and so forth. If we're contracting with CES and bringing those outside students in, is that going to increase our numbers to a point where we're going to need to bring on someone else?
So how I've approached this, and I discussed it with, one of our speech pathologists has done a lot of work for CDS, so she's the one providing because she's already set up in the CDS system so we can bill. We'll only take on kids if we have the capacity to take on kids. And some of these kids she groups, so it doesn't mean she's using 6 hours of her time. She's probably using an hour and a half of her time because she groups the kids. So we will only take referrals from CVS that we have the capacity to do that. And again, it's all fluid. We have kids who are referred and we pick up, and then we have kids who have made great gains and we dismiss them from those services. So right now we have the capacity that we can do this.
Do you have like recommended numbers for the amount of cases that someone should be taking on?
Well, usually with therapists like speech pathologists, they can have, if they were full-time, they could have 50 students, which is high, but in my other district, they had up to 50 for full-time. So if we have somebody for 3 days, I would look at them having no more than 30. If we have somebody for 2 days, no more than 20. Right now, one of my pathologists who's 3 days is up to 28. The other one I think is at 24. So, you know, we keep, and it also, as you know, it depends on, there are some kids who have 1 time a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. So we have to look at those numbers too.
I know we've got a couple minutes, sorry,
Yeah.
but I can be short. So I, for the last year or so, I've tried desperately to understand seed money. And I still don't think I have it, but I'm going to say a number that I think would either demonstrate that I have it or that I don't have it. Okay? So, and this is looking over what we have in our budget books for special ed. I think that we get a little bit more than half of what we bill for.
Yes.
I do understand it.
And the reason is because we do have to pay a percentage of that. Remember, we are the local share. And that percentage actually has decreased a little bit. A couple of years ago, it was 38%. Now I think it's, I checked it before I gave you a little cheat sheet, it's 35.66%. And then we have to pay our vendor who does the billing for us.
That's that last column,
The last column.
and that's labeled like M.
Oh, maybe, yeah, it's EDMS. It's 10%. We pay them 10% when we get to do the billing. So they take all our notes, all our everything from our providers, and they translate it into the DHHS billing codes, and they bill it to the state. But we have to pay them for that vendor fee, so yeah. So we might be getting a little bit more. We might be getting 55% or 54%.
Lori, I know what all those letters are, but what the heck is BCBA?
Board Certified Behavior Analysis.
Okay. Thanks, I was gonna ask that too, but I forgot.
And we have a great behavior teacher, and she's actually working on our BCBA, which is quite a feat in itself. And it's, you have to take national tests and things like that and do internships. But most districts need somebody to consult with them on extreme cases. So.
Any more questions?
Thank you, yay.
Bring us back together again. Mr. Farr?
Hello, sorry if I was holding things up, glad to be here.
It's okay, we were a little ahead of time, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So, Mrs. Cook will let you know when your 10 minutes is up.
Okay.
And 5 minutes of us questioning you if we have that.
all right,
Be okay?
I'm good.
Okay, you have the floor.
All right, so I think, did they get the updated budget? Is that where we're
You
at?
should have it in a minute.
Okay. So the first thing I'll say is the importance of getting, and I've been working with Amanda on this, of getting our codes right in adult ed, because how you code it is how we get our subsidy, relates to how we get our subsidy, and relates to how we get our grants. And so some of what you see before you, there are a few things missing and a few things we're trying to figure out. The amount is pretty close to, does not include grants, the 2 grants that we have on what you have right now for the main college and career access, or also called college transitions, and the AFLA grant. And AFLA is the adult ed federal grant that is used to fund adult basic education and any of the instruction that we do. So those 2 don't show on yours yet. And I think we've had some issues with how the budget is structured and where the codes. It's important to get it right because we need to have a subsidy come in at the highest level. So with that said, so for our revenue next year in the budget, adult ed is looking at about $3,200 less in state subsidy than what we received this year. So that has a little bit of an impact on us. We anticipate the same amount for local revenues, the $55,000. So the budget is based on that, not an increase. And we anticipate the AFLA grant and the College Transitions grant that I mentioned, that those 2 will come in at the same amount that they have for the last 2 years. Those amounts are determined at the hub level. So with our partners in Augusta, it all comes into one hub, Kennebec County basically, and then it's distributed out based on our enrollments. And for the last 3 years, it's been the same, and my discussions with our partners, our other hub directors for adult ed, likely be the same next year. That said, there is a legislation proposed, LD 718, it may increase. So, but there's no guarantees there. So that's the piece on revenue. There are one quick thing on the enrichment. In years past, I think the amount has been listed at $4,000, or there's a general, in the history, we've made about $4,000 revenue. In the budget I proposed that it actually is proposed at $10,000, not because we're gonna make $10,000, but actually in the expenses, which we would be expending $8,000. So it's actually anticipating a much lower enrichment revenue. But because we have an 80-20 split with all our instructors, so that's roughly an estimate. We roughly bring in about $10,000 in revenue, and we pay out to our instructors 80% of that. So that's where the $10,000 and $8,000 come from. We lost our driver's education teacher who used to work through us, retired this year, so we don't have that. And so that's not knowing whether or not we'll have a driver's ed person next year for the full year. That does hurt the revenue that comes in for enrichment. And so it's at a pretty low level of 2,000, anticipating just 2,000. That's revenue. That's enrichment. Mentioned the legislation. The expenditures, major changes in the budget this year. 15-hour weeks, administrative assistant instead of 32 hours benefited position. So that's pretty significant. We increased the instructor hourly rate by $2 an hour across the board. We've included the May State retirement money that hasn't been included in the budget in the past, that has to for my position, even though I'm part-time. There's approximately, in this budget, there's approximately $20,000 going directly into instruction in various forms. That is not grant funded. So there's $7,000 that we tend to get for the college transitions, and the about $5,000 we get for AFLA is not included in that $20,000. So that's $20,000 of our state subsidy and local funds. So going into that. Overall, the budget allows for about just under 1,600 hours of instruction, 1,577 throughout all the opportunities, and it includes new opportunity, about 100 hours of instruction to do work with substitute teachers in the school district to develop and provide a training for anybody who wants to be a substitute teacher. Not required, something to help build the skills of substitute teachers, make it more desirable if they want to substitute in multiple places, and to help one of the largest employers in the area. So those are the big things. This year's budget should come in well within the black, so we anticipate that. This next year's budget, having the chance to do this, I mentioned again the subsidy piece. Subsidy is there's a cap that is determined by the amount of money you get in the previous year. A big part of that is what you get in local funds. So the fact that this year they upped local funds by $30,000 means that the cap went up. So that opens up opportunities that more of our funding can be considered for subsidy. So with this budget for next year, we would see in 2 years, based on the estimation calculator that they give us with the formula, we would see in 2 years an enrichment, or we would see a subsidy of about $24,000 coming in from the state, if they maintain just at the same levels current legislation doesn't pass. So that is why the budget is structured the way it is, why things are where they are, so that we can maximize the subsidy. Because ultimately, that allows us more money we can get for that, the more instruction we can do. And that's the budget. That's what the budget is. Those are the major shifts. We are. Oh, last thing is the administrative costs are now at about 56% of the total budget, down from about at 56, down from 68%.
So it sounds like with the extra 21,000 because of the raise in cap, what was the extra because the cap is going to go up?
So they set a cap to what you
Yeah,
can.
but what was that amount?
So in 2 years, because it's on a 2-year cycle, we would see 24,000, the estimated 24,000 in subsidy, whereas what we're actually going to have in this upcoming budget is about 16, just over 16,000.
So you can't budget that till FY 21.
No, but in doing every year with adult ed, when you do your budget, you want to use the calculator because you want it in the right places so that, because if you don't spend it, some things are subsidized at 50%, some things are subsidized at 70 or 75%. You want as much as you can into the instruction. That's the highest percentage of subsidy you can get. And if your local funds only give you, this cap is determined by the amount of local funds you get, in large part. So I can't get a higher amount if I'm only getting in 20,000. If I'm only getting a total of 40,000 from that and from the subsidy, which is weird how they add it up. But if I'm only getting 40,000, then my cap is set at I think it's half of that. So I can't get more than that. So the better I do, if we keep the local funds, by increasing local funds, it allows me access to more. And we have in the past done better at it. As I look over the last 6 or 7 years, about getting some of that subsidy, but I really focused this year on making sure we did it so we get as much as possible.
Other questions from the school committee? Ms. Cook?
I have a question, I don't know who to address it to. Are we going to still ask the town for the same amount of local money as we did last year?
Yes,
Which was?
it's 55,000.
Okay.
Any others? So is, do
Would you just touch lightly on how many students? you
Oh,
have?
yeah, start, thank you, Tom. So this year, or this semester, we have 12 high-set students, 3 college transitions, college and career access transitions, they're changing the name. College transitions is what it is. 2 ABE, adult basic education, which is basic literacy students. Current enrollment, last year's total enrollment was about 320 for enrichment, so we touched 320 individuals. That's some of them more than once in the enrichment classes. We're down a little this semester. This last semester, only 138, so we're not quite at half of what we did last year. But honestly, we found out that some people thought we were closed. They heard we were might get closed, and then they didn't know. I had probably a dozen folks who I've identified who felt that way, and I was like, so some of that just, might just be having been the transition. So, and right now we already have 2 people who have completed their high-set testing and will get their diploma at the end of this semester and passed. And anticipate 4, maybe 5. There's one who is avoiding taking the tests. So that's who we have for students.
It seemed to me that you indicated that we were going to have $38,000 reduced revenue. How do we make up for that?
3,200. Sorry.
3,200?
Yep, 3,200 in-state subsidy.
Okay, thank you.
So, honestly, the biggest savings this year is the change in the administrative assistant. We're actually able to stay open from 10 to 5 for the most part next year, Monday through Thursday, which is almost the same number of hours we've always been open, but by splitting those times between a 15-hour administrative assistant and myself, we should be able to do it and continue to save that money. So it's about, so we were spending almost $39,000 on that position, and we're probably spending 17. So
Great.
that 3,200 is covered.
Great, thank you.